I am going to show you the behind the scenes entire process of exactly how I use Figma's AI to do user research and analysis, to generate my designs, to prototype them for me, and then I'm going to even take it further and show you how we turn it into a real app, and I'm going to do this all in 48 hours. So I met with my accountant last week, and he told me basically that the way that I was keeping my books was not the most optimal. And I just thought, I wish I had a really easy way to see how my money is coming in and then be able to allocate it to certain accounts or buckets to get an idea of if I'm putting enough in towards investments, saving towards taxes, or personal or emergency fund. And I want to find out, is this a problem that other people are having too? So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to conduct some research. We're going to talk to people about their problem, and we're going to find out what solutions exist. Then we're going to plan and strategize based on the weaknesses and opportunities we discover for our solution. Then we'll design the UI. We'll create a single flow like a micro app to test and iterate on. And finally, we'll no code the app, mark it up, create the database model and the functionality. The first two parts will be done in Figma AI. Then we'll move into Figma AI and then Buzzy AI. This is an in-depth tutorial, so make sure to watch to the end and save if you need to come back later. So I'm going to kick this off with some user research and opening up a FigJam file. So the first thing I want to do is kind of brainstorm. This button over here is going to help me do that. So I want to generate a brainstorm using AI. Research insights about freelancer budgeting, and let's just go ahead and generate that. Let's just see what it did. So yes, it wants me to kind of explore the current landscape of what budgeting apps are out there. It wants me to think through some of the challenges faced by freelancers, which is great, and then strategies. So now I am going to have AI generate me a mind map, and this mind map is going to be all about freelancer, budgeting, and money allocation. We're just going to explore topics about this. Oh, I'll put that here and then generate. It's like a second brain here for me, and it's going to connect the dots on all of these things that I can explore. They have these different income sources, right? They might have expenses, taxes, savings. So this right here sounds like the start of my buckets that show what freelancers are doing. So this goes really deep. I can start to see where my MVP can be. Okay, so first I need a bit of a plan before I go into this user research part. So I'm gonna have FigJam help me out with that too. Back in here, I'm just gonna make a section, and this is gonna just be like my research plan. I can grab a sticky, say, create me a research plan, and I'm just gonna copy this from right here. And then I'm gonna use my favorite little tool, and that's this widget down here called Jambot. So I'll click on that, I will grab Jambot and drag it onto the canvas. Now, all I need to do is connect any sticky to the Jambot, and then I can use any of these AI features to help me. So I'm going to click on the first one, which is ideate. And it just made me this whole section that gives me a breakdown of the research plans. It says to conduct surveys and interviews, analyze existing budgeting app, create the interface, develop the app, etc. So I'm going to do all of this in this video. The next thing I want to do, because I have an interview scheduled in 10 minutes, is I need to write these questions. Like, what am I going to ask in this interview? So I'm going to jump back over here into the conducting interviews section, and I'm going to drag another sticky in here, and I'm going to say, write me some interview questions for freelancers about their budgeting needs, habits, and solutions. I'm going to come back over here. I need to grab another Jambot and put it over here. I'm going to connect to this and then hit ideate. Here are the questions. How do you prioritize spending as a freelancer? Can you describe a challenge you face related to budgeting? What tools do you currently use? How do you adjust your budgeting during low income periods? These are all really great questions. I'm going to also throw in some open-ended questions. So this is perfect. I'm going to take these questions and I'm going to jump into my interview right now. How do you kind of allocate money to paying your taxes and like your self-employment tax and all the things that have to come out of that? Like, and how do you manage, like, okay, how much goes to personal spending versus business expenses?
So I have my own spreadsheet that I calculate essentially how much I need per quarter given my income that I anticipate. So I get paid every 2 weeks. Depends on how frequently I submit the invoice, but usually within 2 weeks of when I submit the invoice. When I know I'll get paid for each month, how much monthly income I'll calculate to budget.
How do you kind of decide how much you want to allocate to that investment fund every month?
Hmm. Actually, I still have to decide on that.
So that interview went really great. I got some amazing feedback, and it kind of validated this idea that it would be really cool to just have a really simple visualization of what's going on in the right amounts. So I took a bunch of notes during the interview. I also have transcribed it, and I basically just dumped the whole transcription into a sticky. And I have a couple of interview insights here. Now, don't be afraid to get messy on your FigJam canvas because it will all make sense and come together very soon. So now that I've dumped this here, I am going to use my FigJam bot again to do a couple of things for me and help me clean this all up. So one of the things that I want to do is connect this again to this. And then I want it to like summarize this for me. And I want it to do it as bullet points. If I want to run this Jambot again, I can drag another one over here and I can say rabbit hole. And then it's going to give me a couple of other areas here, handling unexpected low income months, percentage breakdown for budgeting. Now I know that there is this approach of the 30, 40, 10, 10 rule. Now I can build these suggestions into my solution. I can take all of this stuff. I'm just going to grab all of these things. I'm going to put it into this section right here. And you'll notice when you're in a section and you click on it, there's a feature called Organize, and you can sort these stickies by topics or color or whatever it is. I'm going to use Summarize. It's going to take this whole mess of stuff and create some actionable insights here. And I think I'm going to focus on this bottom one here, which is organizing and tracking funds. That's the flow that I want to work on right now. And then, of course, if I want to clean up this whole space, I click on this again, I go to Organize, and then I sort my stickies by topic. So that's going to make another board for me here. And look at that. I have enough about the actual problems, some opportunities here. Now let's look at solutions that already exist and let's do a bit of competitor analysis. So the first thing I did was head to Reddit to see what everyone's talking about. I already went through and explored and have been using some of the more popular ones like QuickBooks. There were a couple of really interesting apps here that people talked a lot about, and one that kept coming up was called YNAB. So I decided to download that one and walk through it and just take notes of the user experience, the interface, the interactions. And it had a similar concept to where you select a bill type and then you assign an amount to it. So this is clearly a design pattern that people enjoy and that's working for them, but it hasn't been necessarily applied to the specific freelancer problem space. So this is all headed in a pretty good direction. So the last thing that I wanted to do is check one of my favorite spots, and that's Mobbin. They do what I just did manually automatically for you by collecting thousands and thousands of real apps and showing you walkthroughs of them, their flows, their screens, their UI elements, all. I'm going to type in budget, and let's see what we have here. And you can just go through all of these. If you have a pro account, you can watch the videos of people actually using the apps and going through all of the flows. And you should check the description for a link to this because it is a must-have for any UX UI designer. I want to jump back into FigJam and have it generate me a flowchart. So I know all of the screens I need to create. So I'm just going to ask AI to create me this flowchart with a decision tree for the features of my app. And it came up with this: a start screen, add balance, create a bucket, allocate money to the bucket, update the balance. If it needs more funds, we go back to allocate, show the recommended percentages, the end. Okay, so now we're going to take all of the research we did in FigJam and have Figma's AI features actually create the designs and the flows for us. Everything is going to happen with this little magic button right here. This is the Figma AI icon. And this is where you can control a bunch of different features that this AI offers. The first one is called First Draft, and that is really Figma's generative AI that is going to create these designs for us. So I'm going to start with this one. This button here allows you to toggle between a basic app, an app wireframe, or a desktop site or wireframe. And so I am going to start with a app wireframe, for example. So we can generate out a bunch of wireframes, and I'm going to create the prompt for this. So we kind of have our problem statement, right? We want to create a financial app, spell financial right. Okay, let's go ahead and make a wireframe. Okay, so it's building this wireframe in real time, just like that. We've got our first screen, and that looks pretty good. It pretty much did exactly what I asked it to do. So now we can click on Make Changes, and there are lots of little customizations here. We can make it dark mode. We can change the main color. We can change the radius of all of these cards and buttons. I love that you can just do that all at once. Then I can come over to the title text and change that. And then the spacing is really nice because I can kind of tighten things up or give it more white space or breathing room. So already with just a few clicks, we took it from what looked like a wireframe and we already increased the fidelity a bit. Now you'll also notice that the name of this screen becomes the prompt that you use. So that's where it stores the prompt. So what I like to do is just copy that and then make a comment and paste that in there just so that I have a reference for the prompt that I used. And that way I can actually rename this to something more appropriate. Let's see what it looks like now if we used not the wireframe, but the actual basic app. So I'm just going to take the same exact prompt that I had here, and I'm going to paste it into the first draft into the basic app version. Add a back button to the top. Okay, let's make it. Okay, just about 5 seconds. And oh, that's so much better, so much cleaner. And just look at that. It has everything we need. So this is great. Something I noticed is it generates very strange looking icons for the status bar. And since I'm going to be turning this into a real app, I don't really need that. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. The best part about this is actually for me in the layers panel, how neatly organized and named everything is, and that it's already done in auto layout. Now we kind of have to build a flow out of this, and we're just going to build out this really simple MVP so that we can get it into the hands of our users. So I'm going to take out a few things here, and then these are buttons, but maybe a slider would be cooler. I'm also going to make these cards a little bit more visible, so I'm going to change the fill here, something like that. The other thing that's so great, I'm going to just take this and paste it over here so that you can see what I'm doing. But with this bar, let's say that I have this moving down. Instead of duplicating things, I can hover over this and just drag, and it's going to do it for me. It's going to make all of those. Then I can, choose to wrap, and then it will wrap it for me. And then I can drop this back in here. Okay, so here we are all cleaned up a bit. As you can see, we have this bucket, the dashboard, and I've done a slider instead of a button. And now the other cool thing that AI is going to do for us is it's going to prototype this whole thing. All I have to do is select all of the screens, come back down over here and click Make Prototype. And just like that, it's added all of these noodles here for us. So now we can come up to hit play and click through and see if everything works. It connected it perfectly. I'm back now to do the really fun part, and that is turning these designs into a real working app. So in order to do this, we're going to use a plugin and a tool called Buzzy. You need to set up an account with Buzzy and then install the Buzzy plugin. So normally we would have to do this all manually, but Buzzy's amazing auto markup does this for us. So first we're going to click the Auto Markup My App button. Now, this says no screens are defined, so we can select the screens from our canvas, or we can just scan for screens automatically. So I'm going to choose that one. Okay, so it's found 6 screens. Now, you can select the ones that you want to mark up. You don't have to select them all. I don't need that dashboard updated, so I just need the bucket information, add a bucket, allocate, dashboard, and slide finish. And it also lets you define what type of screen it is, whether it's the starting point of the flow, or it's a basic screen, or it's an overlay. Next, we're going to click Continue. Shows that 5 Buzzy screens are defined. We're going to click Continue again. And now we want to generate a brief. Now this is like your product requirements document, and it's going to define all of the functions of this app. So let's click Generate My Brief. Great, our brief is generated, and this is amazing. It's got Our app name, we can change this. The app description is a budgeting app that allows users to allocate funds into customizable buckets for better financial organization. It's got the functions listed here as add a bucket, view buckets, allocate funds, edit bucket, user roles, and even data requirements. So now we're going to click continue. There's no data model, so this is the part where it creates the database for you. So we're going to go ahead and click generate my data model. Okay, the data model has been generated, and we can see here the data tables. And this is the database here. So we have our users, our buckets with name, description, icon, allocated amount, and the amounts that we're going to allocate to those buckets. Perfect. Now let's continue. So now it's going to mark up these screens by connecting all of the ones that I select to the database and to the brief and all of the functional requirements. Okay, that was a success. Our screens are marked up. So now we can continue adding more screens, or we can publish our app to see it in action. Now, it's not going to have any data in it because the user hasn't interacted with it yet and added anything to it. We're just going to generate some sample data for right now. There's still some manual work to be done, and for that, we're going to switch to expert mode. And once we do that, we'll see these 4 tabs up here where most of our work will happen. There's that brief that it generated, the data model, and now with the designs, we may need to connect a few things. So it was right about here that I ran into some snags publishing and getting stuck on getting things to render the way I wanted them to look. Thankfully, Buzzy has really great documentation and a wonderfully supportive Discord group that I leaned on a lot. So the trick to doing any input like this and making it interactive for the user is that we need to start with this container being a form. So we've got this main content here, and we want Buzzy to know that this is an input form and it's got fields. So this big component right here is one big form that contains all of the fields and the button. So when I assign this interface role, I'm going to choose component, and then the component type is going to be form, and then this is going to be the add a bucket form. I'm going to name it that. And this will connect to the database that's bucket because we want to store all of these things in that table. And then I'm going to select capture. So there are 3. You can either edit something that's existing, you can just have it read a value that's already there, or you can have it capture something, and that's what we want. We want the user to be able to type into this field. And we want to make sure that this button is now submitting that information. So we're going to use an action interface, right? Because we want that action to be submit, and then we want it, after it's submitted, to navigate to the dashboard screen. And that's exactly what we've told it to do here. And again, Buzzy is going to do most of this for you, but I'm just giving you a peek under the hood in case something goes wrong. So the other thing that I want to do is make sure that this text field actually has a label inside of it. Otherwise, it's just going to show blank inside of the app. I'm going to edit this field, and I'm going to go to advanced settings, and that's where you can find the placeholder. Now, to set up these buckets correctly, again, we're going to want to click into the design here, and we're going to have this text here be a field. So we want to assign that to the role of field, and we're going to select the bucket name from the database. And again, that refers to whatever bucket name was entered here by the user. And then all we want to do is just display that. So that's going to be the summary of whatever has been inputted there. And for the amount here, because we want to show the amount that's inputted, we want this to be dynamic, we're going to also make it a field, and this will be the allocated amount, and then it would be a summary of that amount as well. Okay, so let's see what it's looking like so far. I'm going to make sure that we have the plugin open, so we're going to go ahead and publish that app. And I'm just going to scan this QR code on my phone as well so that you can see what this looks like. So over on my phone, I'm going to go ahead and scan this QR code, and we're going to open up the Buzzy app. And this is what it looks like. Add a bucket, and you can see that it's added a personal bucket right there. And now I can click on the slider. Now the slider functionality is going to take a little while to implement. There are a few steps there, so we'll get into that in a more advanced tutorial. And that's it. This is a real working app. It's crazy. So the other great thing that you can do here is manage all of this on your Buzzy workspace as well. So you'll be able to communicate back and forth between Figma and this app that you're creating and the database. So if I go ahead and click Manage on Buzzy Workspace, it looks a little something like this, and you can see all of the database tables that are created. You can see the designs, so the screens, you can view the brief that was created as well. So if I go ahead and enter in a bucket here and I call that travel expenses and I hit save, boom, you'll see that added right to that database. So it's interacting all within Figma and inside of the app in real time. It's amazing. One of the things I learned is that when you do have issues publishing, you can go into the workspace and just clear it out and republish again from Figma. I was pretty scared to do that, but thankfully Dave was there to reassure me and confirmed that Figma is the source of truth and I wouldn't lose the work that I'd done. And just like that, I made a complete working app from start to finish that would have taken months otherwise without the magic of AI. If you like this, go check out buzzy.buzz and check out my course where I teach you how to use techniques and tools like this to be a product designer.